Well, it is top of the hour, and so we are going to get started with today's training. My name is Nancy Housel, and I am a librarian here at the Department for Libraries and Archives. And I do a variety of things, just like you do at your library, I'm sure. But most of my job duties relate to marketing and communications. And I guess part of that, I guess you could see, is training. With me today is Lauren Abner. Lauren is also a librarian here at Libraries and Archives. And I'm not exactly sure what Lauren's official title is, but she works with technology and does some training, works with E-rate, and probably other things that I'm not aware of. We're lucky today because we are both big readers. In fact, we were talking about what we like to read just before we got started with today's training. But again, as I said earlier in our sound check, you know, if you have a favorite author or a title that you have read in the genres that we are going to talk about today, feel free to share, because you know we could just take one genre and talk about it almost all day about authors and books. But what we're going to try to do today, my objective is to kind of give you a quick overview of what's going on in 5 of the top genres that you may be asked questions of when you're working the front desk. So what we're talking about today has to do with Reader's Advisory. And essentially, Reader's Advisory means that you are trying to find the right book for the person at the right time. So you're trying to help your readers, your patrons, find the best, the most enjoyable reading that matches what they might need, what they're interested in, and even what their reading level is. So it's all about connecting readers to the appropriate authors and titles. Now, this is a big part of the library world. So there's lots of advice out there about how to do Reader's Advisory and how you go about helping someone find a book. So one of the first things you need to keep in mind is that you need to know what your reader is in the mood for. So you go about asking a series of questions where you kind of elicit this information from your reader or your patron. You know, you're asking questions about, okay, what kinds of things have you read recently? You know, what did you enjoy about it? What didn't you like about it? You know, what are some of your favorite books and authors that you've read in the past that you would like maybe to read something that's similar to it? Or maybe what things have you read in the past that you're tired of? You know, where do you think you might want to go next? It's all about using the different appeal factors. You know, do you want things that are funny? Do you want things that are dark and gritty? Do you like things that are action-packed? Or do you like things that develop over a time? You like stories where it's more about how the character develops. All these things are the appeal factors, and those are the things that you use in asking your questions to get information from your patron. So if you know the right questions to ask, and you know what the appeal factors are, then you're all set to work the front desk, right? Well, you know, it isn't that easy. In everyday practice, knowing the theory behind what you're supposed to be asking doesn't always get you very far. Now, in preparing for today's training, I came across this graphic, and I looked at it and said, ooh, I like that. So I don't know if it's the color combination, but I haven't quite seen, a lot of the genres, figured like this. So I said, okay, well, I need to save that and use it. So this is a graphic taken from a website called Writers Write, W-R-I-T-E, Write. So they say that this is the 17 most popular genres in fiction. And so we've got the broad categories here, and then all the little tabs or buttons or, are the subgenres under each category. Now I looked at it and I said, well, to me, I think some things are missing. Now, like, what about Westerns? But then I see where they kind of, broke up Westerns, under each kind of category. Now, I don't see Christian fiction. So I don't know that, it includes everything, but I think it's a good representation of a lot of the genres that we collect and our patrons are looking for. And so this kind of classification into different genres are good because, when we classify a book according to the genre, it fulfills the reader's expectations because we check out certain titles because we've enjoyed similar stories in the past. So wouldn't it be great when you're behind the desk, and somebody walks in the front door of the library that they had unlimited amount of time where you could talk about all these genres, all these subgenres, until you really could narrow down exactly what the person is looking for. Or, even realistically, you couldn't take unlimited time. But if they could just take 20 minutes, that's not likely either. Usually when somebody comes up to the desk, it's like, could you recommend a good book? And could you do it now? Because, the kids are screaming. I got to pick up the kids at daycare. I need to go by the grocery store before they sell all the milk, blah, and on and on and on. I've got to get to the doctor and, my appointment's in 10 minutes and it's across town. People want to get in and get out. They want something to read when they're out the door. And who are they looking to be the expert? That's right, it's you. And sometimes that creates a lot of anxiety and fear behind those of us who work the Reader's Advisory Desk or the Circulation Desk, because no matter how long the patron spends with us, no matter what kind of information we get them to tell us, the bottom line is that they truly think we have read everything in our libraries. And so we should be able to instantly make a recommendation to them. So how do you do this without reading everything you can get your hands on 24/7? Well, many Reader's Advisories courses and articles say that when you're asked to recommend a book, you shouldn't just tell them your favorite author or your favorite title that you've read recently. So you do need to become well-versed in your library's collection, so it seems that every time you recommend a book, they think it's something that you have read and enjoyed. Well, our slide here presents some ways of doing that. So the first thing I do is challenge you to break out of your reading rut and explore an author or genre you know nothing about. Now, I'm assuming that you are readers. Yes, I know there are some librarians who are not. But, you know, if you only read mysteries, if you only read romance, you know, once in a while, you know, pick up a fantasy, but pick up science fiction. For me, it would be horror, because I very seldom ever read horror. You know, it just creeps me out too much. You know, it makes me want to go and hide under the covers. So, you know, break out and try something different, a different genre, or explore a new author from one different from your favorites. At the very least, if you work behind the circulation desk or reader's advisory desk, you should be challenging yourself to discover one new author a week. Now, this means you could read an entire book, but you could probably get by with just skimming through the book, or even just looking around online reading a summary or reviews about the book or the new author. But however you choose to do it, it's imperative that you become familiar with as many authors that are in your library's collection as possible. So now while you're doing this, yeah, I like the idea of a blind date with a new author. You know, you could go through and pick out, you know, a good-looking, you know, person, you know, from the big photo they have, you know, on the inside flap or on the back cover of the book. You sit in front of the fireplace if it's a cool evening. You know, your favorite beverage. I'm not going to say what, you know. Yeah, that paints a pretty picture for me. Thank you for that. So once you kind of go through the idea of broadening your horizons, the next step is to keep track of what you read. Now, preferably in a format that you can access quickly. Now, I am a big reader. You know, it's just me at home. My family is out. I watch, you know, some things, but I've learned how to, you know, set my DVR. You know, so I'm as likely to read in the evenings as I am to watch TV. You know, and I can read a book in about one book about every 2 days. So since I read so prolifically, I keep track of what I read because I hate to read a book more than once. Now, the way I do it, which I don't recommend, but it works for me, is I have a series of small mini notebooks, and I have a set of mini notebooks, and I keep track of what I've read, the authors I read, and the titles, and as, you know, as I read them, I check them off. And then I have another series of notebooks of things I've come across that I want to read. And so throughout the course of the year, I work my way through the notebooks. You know, right now I'm working on the part of the alphabet, I think M through, or N through, I guess maybe the rest of the alphabet. You know, so right now I'm reading up on authors that I've read in the past, so I'm catching up on the new entries into the series. And once I finish kind of catching up on what the authors I've read in the past, then I'll look at the notebooks of what I want to read in the same alphabet letters, and, you know, I'll pick, you know, maybe 15 books. You know, that's one trip to the public library for me. Or, you know, twice, you know, I'll go through and pick out some new authors, and, you know, when I finish that part of the alphabet, then I'll start all over again at the top of the alphabet. You know, that doesn't really work for Reader's Advisory at their front desk, because you wouldn't want to be carrying your little case of notebooks with you everywhere. Plus, it's something that you couldn't, you know, really search by title or by author or by the appeal factors. But there are ways that you can do that online, such as with Goodreads and Library Thing. You can go in there and kind of create a personal account. It's free. And you have a way of tracking what you've read. And then, when you get those kinds of questions at the front desk, you can quickly go into the account, your account at Goodreads, and click on log into your personal account, and then, kind of see the recommendations or, the summaries that you may have put down about individual titles that might fit in with what your patron is looking for. So, it's good to do that. You kind of keep this log, whether online or in a card file or something, because we're all going to have those moments when our brain just stops working. It's not just for those of us who are baby boomers. At one point your brain's going to stop working, and every single title, just that you may have normally in your head is just going to be gone on vacation. So, if you have this log, especially online, then all you have to do is go in, go into your account and then look for your recommendations. So you need a quick cache of sources, or a cache of quick sources to check when these moments come. So Goodreads is there. Fantastic Fiction is another good site, especially if you're trying to figure out the order of titles in a series. And of course, one of the best Reader's Advisory tools we have is NoveList, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. So keep track of what you're reading. Have some sources you can check when your mind goes blank. Take time for some self-trainings. Certainly doing online trainings like this is of help. You can certainly read Reader's Advisory books, either as a general library service or books on Reader's Advisory in particular genres. You can read articles on the internet from professional journals. An even better thing to do is to keep track of what other people are reading and what's being recommended in professional journals and by other libraries. This is true even about things that you don't read a lot yourself. Find some blogs written by other librarians who tend to recommend or give snapshots of books that they think everyone should be familiar with. In fact, you might want to start a blog for your own library, or maybe you do some of these recommendations through your other social media accounts. Reading reviews of books can give you enough to go on for a recommendation. These are available in professional journals, through things like Booklist online, in newspaper. A lot of popular magazines now have columns where they review books. And even look for reviews in the genres that you don't read a lot in. This can be helpful as to what other people are seeing out there, that might have a lot of buzz going on. When you are at the desk and things are quiet, then use your time wisely and be on the lookout for other, maybe non-library blogs or websites that can help you with your searches in the different genres. Know, what's the big website for mystery books, mystery.net, Romance Writers of America, where the award lists are. These are all things that are good to be aware of. That can help fill in the gap in your own reading interest, as well as help you see where there may be gaps in your library's collection. Okay, so we talked about NoveList. We're not going to give you a blow-by-blow description of NoveList because we have a whole archived webinar about NoveList that you can go to if you're not familiar with NoveList. But NoveList certainly is a trusted source of expert information about books and authors, and is a good source for finding read-alike recommendations. So NoveList is part of the databases offered by the Kentucky Virtual Library, and just about every county library, there are some that aren't, but just most of the county libraries in Kentucky are members of the Kentucky Virtual Library. So, you know, if you didn't know this and you don't know what your library's password is for getting information out of the KYVL databases, then you need to ask your reference librarian or director what that password, username and password is. Because if your library is paying for this tool, it makes sense that we know how to use it. So this is a graphic of the KYVL website, and you can see that you can access NoveList through the drop-down menu at the orange bar, or you can find it under the database link in the center of the page. And as soon as you get to the home page, you have immediate Reader's Advisory help. So from the home page, you can perform searches, you can find reading recommendations for both current and popular titles, best-selling and popular titles. You can browse books by genre and by appeal terms. So I'm in the mood for books that are, this is where you can plug in kind of the appeal terms, like I'm looking for something funny, I want sympathetic characters, I want something dark. You know, these are the kinds of things you could put in there, and you know, you could either use what they've suggested, or you can make up your own terms, and it would give you a list of titles that would meet the criteria that you typed in. The browse genres, you can see, is divided by age, but if you clicked on the adults title, then you would get some suggestions of different genres of books, and you could click on, say, romance, and it would give you information about best-selling and new romance titles. And then on the side, if you clicked on a genre, you can see we've got everything from fantasy down to westerns. If you clicked on one of those, it would take you to a page of suggestions. So notice at the top there it says especially for Reader's Advisory. When you click on there, you kind of get to a page that has lots of information. I just want to point it out too that kind of fit our training topic today. So NoveList provides what they call the Reader's Advisory Toolkit. So all the information I have on Reader's Advisory can be accessed from this toolkit. So the two things I wanted to point out to you is the Reader's Advisory Toolbox has a part that they call Keeping Current, and this is kind of what you see, NoveList Keeping Up pages. So this is a great place to find information, articles, list on a genre or a particular topic. I used the Keeping Up pages a lot in the content for today's training. So you can kind of scroll through a table of contents to pick what you're looking for. They do spotlight a different genre every month or every other month. The other thing they do in the toolbox is they have a section called Learning About Genres, and again you can use the link to go to an outline of genres, gives you some information about subgenres. So again, a great source if you're trying to learn about something new. So one of the things that came out when I began working on the training for today was NoveList recently put out a new publication that you see here, kind of blurry, but it's called NoveList Genres. And like I said, this is brand new, 2017, and it's something that you can download from the NoveList website. And what it does is it gives you kind of a one-page, two-page summary of, the most popular genres and the subgenres, and gives you a few of the suggested titles. And it also gives you some searching tips on how you can find information about this in NoveList. So this would be a great thing to link and have on your bookmark, or have an icon on your desktop for. So if you really are unfamiliar with some genres, you'd have a quick tool you could turn to with some suggestions. One of the other popular tools you have that you can find in the Reader's Advisory Toolbox is this ARRT Popular Fiction List. So this is a checklist created by the Adult Reading Roundtable. So you can download the entire checklist on the NoveList website, and with a little searching around, you can find it and download it on the Roundtable's website as well. So what this is a list of over a dozen genres and nearly 300 different authors. So I said it's a checklist. So here's an example. So under mysteries, there's a section called Amateur Detective. And so what you do is you look at this section. It gives you a brief description, and then it gives you some popular authors in that subgenre of mysteries. And so what you're to do is to rate your knowledge of these authors using the key at the bottom of the slide here. So if this is an author you read, you would put an R. If it's one that you've heard about, then you put an H. If it's one that you have read about, you've seen reviews, or you've listened to interviews, maybe from NPR or something like that, then you use RA. And if this is a brand new person to you, then you use NH. And so the idea is if you use this to kind of test your own knowledge, then you could see authors that you might need to introduce yourself to, or see how your library is fixed for these popular authors in this particular area of mysteries. So I kind of went through at least this slide part, and I would say, since I'm a big mystery reader, I knew about 2/3 ones that I actually read, and probably another 2 or 3 I had heard of and are sort of on my waiting list to read. I don't think there was just one that I had never heard of before. But that's the point of this self-evaluation popular fiction list. Okay, so we're going to go through 5 genres in 30 minutes. Now, can we do it? I don't know. Lauren will have to keep saying, move it along, move it along. Because once I get talking, especially about favorite titles and things, it's hard for me to shut off the time clock. I do want to point out to you that we are talking about adult fiction here, and trends in adult fiction. Certainly we could take the same 5 genres we're going to cover today and turn it around to talk about, teens and children's titles, but we'll leave that to our children's services consultant. a little bit later. So keep in mind, we're talking about adult fiction here. So we're going to start with mysteries. So mysteries are about puzzles. The author provides clues to the solution, but kind of throws in some misinformation so the puzzle can't be solved too easily. So along with the detective, us readers are drawn into the puzzle because we want to attempt to solve it too. So mysteries, besides being about solving a crime, examines human nature in depth. They probe the why almost as frequently as the who and the how. Sometimes people refer to them almost like morality plays, because justice or the restoration of order is at the heart of a mystery solution. We expect the good guys to win and the bad guys to be punished, even if the means of that happening aren't exactly legal. Most mysteries involve a crime, usually murder. An investigator discovers who done it and brings the culprit to justice. So the book or the story describes the investigation, explores the lives of the victim, the perpetrator, and the investigator. Some mysteries focus on the puzzle, while others place more emphasis on character development. Those are the kinds I like. Detectives run the gamut from the amateur detectives and snoops, kind of like Miss Marple, to seasoned police detectives like Michael Bennett and James Patterson's Bennett series, or hard-boiled private investigators like Spencer in Robert Parker Spencer's series, or V.I. Warshawski, by Sarah Paretsky. And it's not only characters that show a wide range. The stories themselves run the gamut from cozy mysteries with the body off stage to that hard-boiled story with a detective, that has a distinctive dark edge and tone to it. Some mysteries have strong elements of suspense and intrigue, very fast-paced stories where the characters face deadly danger throughout the time of the investigation. Mysteries are popular because we like to solve the case before we get to the end of the book. I do a lot, and then I usually turn to the back of the book to see if I was right. Which some people don't do because they don't like to spoil the story. We all appreciate the fact that some of these are ones I know about. Some may be ones that are popular with you. Michael Connelly is best known for his long-running series featuring Harry Bosch, a Los Angeles police detective who works best when he's on his own. So Connelly is known for intriguing characters, complex puzzles, stylish prose, detailed investigations, and gritty details. So it's a long-running series, so you can really start anywhere, but it's recommended that readers start with the closers. Janet Ivanovich is one of my favorites. She offers humorous dialogue and situations and characters in several different kinds of mystery series. One for the Money starts her best-known series, starring sassy bounty hunter in training Stephanie Plum. And she's good at offering a lot of eccentric characters, a range of villains from deadly to inept. Lots of slapstick humor, romance, and sometimes just a touch of the paranormal can fill her titles. Even before Robert Galbraith was outed as a pseudonym for J.K. Rowling, he garnered critical acclaim for his deftly plotted mysteries. So his mysteries are awash with red herrings and plot twists. Offers atmospheric world building and absorbing storylines. And so it's suggested that if you recommend this book, that you suggest the reader start with The Cuckoo's Calling, which introduces Cormoran Strike, a private investigator down on his luck. Jo Nesbø comes to us from Norway. Her novels are edgy mysteries filled with descriptive violence. His Harry Hole series stars a moody but totally sympathetic police detective. Jo is noted for fully realized characters, complex plots, measured pacing, and a strong sense of place that distinguish the dark cases. Readers for this series are suggested to start with the title The Bat. Louise Penny has her mystery set in Quebec. Her novels feel like cozy mysteries, though in fact they are police procedurals featuring Montreal Inspector Armand Gamache and his department colleagues. So here the series characters are engaging. They reappear story after story in the series. She offers lush descriptions that resonate in layered and twisted puzzles. They're thoughtful and multidimensional characters, and it's suggested that you start with the first of the series, Still Life. Now, you know we could do a whole thing on mystery authors, but this is just some of the more popular or best-selling authors in recent years. So, current trends in mystery writing. Domestic psychological fiction, suspense novels are a hot ticket right now. Now, these are stories that involve a family that is menaced by some type of threat, even from within the family or outside. Examples of these would be Megan Abbott's You Will Know Me, or Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. Classics are kind of coming back. This kind of started a couple of years ago with a British series which popularized classic mysteries and classic mystery authors. So, you know, some people will be great or will welcome these. Some caution about recommending classics is remember that these are products of their times. And so sometimes there can be language or attitudes about certain ethnic, racial groups or gender groups that come across that may be offensive, especially if your patron is one of the, slandered groups. So you might get something, that, downplays women, like, well, you know how women are, that kind of thing. The other thing about classics is sometimes they're really hard to find. I know one time I kind of went on a jag where I wanted to read all the Perry Mason stories. But like I wanted to start from the beginning and read straight through. It was very hard to find those early titles in my public library. So good thing, for interlibrary loan. Also, because titles have been edited, reissued. Sometimes international titles have different titles that we use from here in America. Sometimes authors use different names. Sometimes they use a real name for one series and a pseudonym for another. So if you're, that can be some complications there. Lots of popularity for international authors and settings. Now, this kind of started with the publication of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. Some people say this is kind of down on the downswing, but yet, it's still there, especially with the Scandinavians. A lot of people, Norway, Iceland, so international authors and series, we're talking about books written in other languages that are translated into English, but also novels that are written in English set in a foreign land. Use of actual historical figures as detectives is popular right now. They're popular because it's a real person, and we kind of like delving into the heart and the mind of that person, kind of seeing things that maybe, aren't publicly visible. But of course, that's also the disadvantage, because if the story isn't true to what we know publicly about the person, or is put in a situation that couldn't possibly happen in that person's lifetime, then the story is completely unbelievable and we are turned off. So some people who are used as examples are Harry Houdini and Eleanor Roosevelt, are both characters in popular sets of mysteries. Historical mysteries are popular, especially right now. Novels that are set in time of the American Civil War and World Wars I and II are really popular. Mysteries that are set in a particular area, so that we get a sense of what life and culture is like in these areas. So if you're interested in the Amish, you might want to read Linda Castillo's series, where her police chief, Kate Burkhalter, is police for where there's a lot of Amish communities. North Carolina, you get a sense of the Piedmont area if you're a fan of Margaret Mayron's Deborah Knott series. So you kind of see these communities, get a sense of what is good, what divides the community, what the issues are. And as you see the characters kind of create their way through these, obstacles, then you get a feeling for the locality or the region, but you also can see that it has universal appeal. So how can you help mystery fans? Now, well, in your reader's interview, ask your readers to describe a detective they like to read about. Now, if they aren't big readers, then ask them about television shows or movies that are mysteries that they have read. And if they're based on books, then steer them towards the books that television show or movie was based on. Remember, mysteries, has a lot of different subgenres. Some people kind of confuse mysteries with thrillers and suspense. So you might have to kind of see exactly what the person is calling a mystery. Again, asking those questions. For readers who don't want a lot of graphic violence or descriptions of sex, steer them towards the cozy mysteries for a more gentler read. And remember, especially when introducing a new author or a series, the first title may not be the best place to start. For example, if you are wanting to introduce somebody to the Spencer series, that whole interplay of Spencer and Hawk and Susan really doesn't happen until about the third or fourth book into the series. Okay. So thrillers is all about anticipation. So in thrillers, we are dealing with a sense of unease. that kind of starts at the beginning and continues through to the dramatic climax. Action drives the story, and there's danger at every turn. Suspense is very closely related. In suspense stories, we see the action from both the hero and the villain's point of view. So sometimes we know more of what's going on than the hero does. We feel that the protagonist's plight, we see it, we understand the discoveries he's going to be looking at, we understand the reasons behind the threat, and we can't wait to see justice done. So we become insiders as the story plays out against the background. Pacing is really important. Readers want to be pulled into the story very quickly and want to keep turning the pages until the very end. Action often takes place within a short time frame. Sometimes it's a matter of days. Sometimes it's just a matter of hours or even minutes. These books are cinematic in scope. They're often made into movies. These are popular because, the authors provide sympathetic heroes and heroines, really ghastly villains, that we love to hate, big stories that can go on the big screen, lots of menace, lots of twisting story, all these things that catch our attention and hold us till the end of the story. We like that good and bad are clearly defined, and no matter what happens to our hero, you'll be okay in the end. Justice will be done. Those of you who like conspiracies will find them a lot in thrillers and suspense. The more complicated and corrupt, the better we like them. Lots of things that we see about on the news. Terrorism, bioengineering. We see these played out in some of the newer titles. We like to read these. We want to see what happens next, and we want to know why. And so we're just waiting for the twist in which we'll see that the situation is resolved. So here are some must-know authors. Lee Child, of course, is known for his Jack Reacher stories. Gillian Flynn, we already talked about Gone Girl. David Baldacci is one of my favorites, The Camel Club. He kind of takes these oddball characters and they root out and get rid of corruption in Washington, D.C. James Patterson, his Alex Cross series, we've seen that go to the movies. I read a few of the Alex Cross. Right now I'm into James Patterson's Michael Bennett series and his Women's Murder Club. I've been catching up in those series just within the last couple of months. Harlan Coben is another one who's known for his thriller series and suspense series. Myron Bolitar, I read that series. Tell No One, which is pictured on the screen, I believe, is a standalone that tells the story of a widower who suddenly receives a message from his wife who he thought had been dead for years. So, brooding atmosphere, a really complex but terrifying plot, draws in the reader on all of these. So, current trends. Historical thrillers and suspense, especially those about World War I and II, are kind of at the top of the popularity list. Technology plays a big role except for the historical thrillers and suspense. The good guys have technology, but the bad guy does too. So how can I help? These genres are all kind of catch-all. Remember, there are blends or elements of it in lots of different areas. Just like in mysteries, remember that the sex and violence could be very graphic, so it's best to offer a wide range. Covers are often revealing and give you clues as to what's going on, and so if you have these as a browsable collection, your reader can use the cover to see that's something that draws their attention. I guess because of the difficulties we've had, we're going to run out of time. But you have your handout, and the others kind of follow the same pattern where I kind of give you characteristics, why fans like it, some popular authors, the current trends, in the last couple of years, and then ways or challenges there are into helping readers in that area. Fantasy, is all about the imagination. Science fiction, which we would have talked about, is about, other worlds and plausible stories that are based in science principles. We ended up with my least favorite, horror, Stephen King. The thing about horror is, is fear. The reader wants to be terrified, and the thing that makes it different from thriller and suspense is that, evil may be conquered, but not completely. There's like some spark or some chance that it may escape its, prison and, come back and cause trouble for the world. So I encourage you to go ahead and go through the other genres. Again, a lot of this information has articles within NoveList that you can use. Just want to remind you that in your efforts to learn more about readers' advisories and these genres, you do have access to a lot of professional journals through your KYVL membership. You go to the EBSCO database. You can search by these publications. I think there are over 150 library titles. So you can pick and choose based on your age group, whether you're looking for reviews or mainly articles. You can find help that way. Of course, there's a lot of information at KDLA. You can search for readers' advisory titles in our catalog. If we do purchase anything new, we highlight it on our resources, library science resource page. We do have a lot of webinars, a lot of archived webinars on specific genres and readers' advisory tools in general that you can look for. We have several reading advisory type